انا بس عايز اللينك يشتغل يعني كده بس السكرين شويه.
We're live but
بس انا عايز
we're live but no one is there.
عشان ده لينك
عشان لازم بصوا يا جماعه، هاتوا السبيكرز يقعدوا وابعدوا الكاميرا، ظبطوا السين. طيب حد بس يبعت لي اللينك ده، لو حد يعرف يبعت لي اللينك ده اي حاجه
واتساب
اي حاجه، وانا هاخده عشان بتوع الفيديو تاني الرايه اللي موجود
بعت لك واتساب.
قصدي اشيلها يعني.
حاول بقى
ارفع اللابتوب بس عشان يسجل.
احنا ممكن ناخد ده. Hi guys, if you can hear us, just write something in the chat. هو كان في حد دخل بس طلع تاني.
استنى عمرو
هشغل انهي لينك يا جماعه؟ ما هو في لينك اتفتح ويوسف خده هيغيره. طب لحقوا يوسف قبل ما يغيره لو كده. Guys, if you can hear us, just write something in the chat because we are facing some technical issues. Someone just write something.
طيب انا دلوقتي وقفت ان هو ما يعملش. انا ممكن بس لما تبدا تبعت لي ممكن بس سويتش اكونت بعد كده اشتغل.
It worked. So now we have five members in this link. Maybe they are following the channel and then the channel started a new live, so they joined. Ahmed Zaki says hi. I can see and hear you. Hear your voice. Okay. Abbas says Munawareen. Okay. Thank you, Abbas.
We probably start another stream using
Yeah.
phone.
Yeah. So guys, we're facing some technical issues or problems, and we might send you a new streaming URL. Just bear with us, okay? Sorry for that.
عندي اخبارك.
خلاص طلعت ايه؟ بس عايزين اللينك عشان نشوف. هتقول لايف بس كده معايا
Abbas says the link and the video is perfect. Who? Abbas says the link and the sound and video is perfect.
The problem is the wide angle.
Yeah, but we can take it. We have this one. Can you hear us here? Wait, I can change the. Yes.
هو خلاص في مايك وكاميرا؟ كاميرا الفيسبوك.
It's just a plan B. What should we do?
حط اللينك هنا. انا خلاص اطلع
جاهز. اللينك ده بيشيره مع اشرف حسن او مع يوسف.
Hi guys. Can you hear us now?
Yes.
Is it better? Worse? Better. Okay, so You started another one? Perfect. Yes, it's still the same. Perfect. Okay.
عارف اللينك اللي اسمه ايه؟ ممكن ناخد اللينك اللي
واحنا نشير لينكين ستريمينج ولا لينك واحد؟ لينكين صح؟ بس احسن كويس.
It's not bad.
مفيش extension.
It's okay.
Are you in the okay.
USB extension.
Okay, بعد يوسف.
At least we have 7 viewers. We'll enable the...
عشان الصوت يوضح الصورة مش مشكلة. بعد الصوت.
الصورة مش مشكلة الصوت.
فايه رأيك لما ننقل اللابتوب هنا؟
ماشي.
ما هو لو اللابتوب بياخد This is the mic, right? Should be behind.
Yeah.
Do we have Mohammed Farah?
Not yet.
Okay.
He's in his way.
Was I streaming?
I don't know.
غير المايك اليو اس بي.
غير المايك
Second camera that works.
This is the Wi-Fi.
الايه؟
Okay, so this is the Wi-Fi.
It's muted, but it's like
المايك مش
I
مظبوط.
have no idea what this one is.
Okay. Is this one on YouTube or what?
This one live?
On what?
So
YouTube.
which one is sent to Yusuf?
I
We have
don't know.
now two
This one I
links.
sent to Yusuf, but I don't know if you sent this link to Yusuf or not.
You sent this link to Yusuf?
No.
It doesn't harm to have two links. It doesn't harm.
But this has a better
Audio.
microphone.
So probably this is a better video and
Yeah.
better picture quality. This is better
Yeah.
audio quality. However, this thing also can produce a good.
Because we also have a decent camera here, which we can
But
use as a backup.
will be for recording only, right?
Recording, no.
Okay.
هنستخدم مايك التليفون ولا are you using the mic from the
We're gonna have
For now, no. I'm muted it now, but I will open it once we start.
Yeah. So 1 second.
I think we will have, yeah.
1 second.
Like a separate recording of this whole.
Yes, for like to
Okay.
check out. Yeah.
Because
Just 1 second. Ahmed Zaki, can you hear us clearly now? It doesn't matter the video, but the sound is clear for you.
Will you use this one for the camera?
it would be nice. Yeah.
Do you have the?
Yeah. He says that the sound is good for him.
Yeah, okay.
So I think we can start.
And we can just.
This one is ready to start.
I think we should.
But we don't have Mohammed Baran, right?
But it's okay. I can join later.
We can postpone any data scientist questions.
Okay.
And then...
He is not coming altogether.
He's not coming.
I don't know.
No one knows.
We don't
No one
know.
knows.
So I mean, seriously, we are 11 minutes late and there are already some
Yeah.
people watching, so we should start before people.
The Egyptian time zones.
Should we give any a bit of presentation or?
I can sit here.
How do you feel it? You can have a seat.
Video and sound are very good. Okay.
Do you want the same angle? Or check on the other side, push on this side?
Have you seen the questions?
This side, actually, this side is better.
Please. This one is considered.
Can you just zoom?
No, it's okay. We need to have the ability to.
We will delete the such questions.
Okay, awesome. Okay, thank you.
يا باشا اللايف مش هنرجع اللايف ينتهي. Give you more room.
Yeah, okay. This is enough.
Yeah, it's not like goes on the ceiling.
Yeah. It's not good.
انت على انهي لينك في لينكين؟ ايوه الاثنين على اليوتيوب. لا اخش على ايه؟ هو بيقول ان المايك مش جاي من الصوت، مش جاي من المايك.
فاهم اسمه احمد زكي من مصر، هو بيقول الصوت كويس. احنا ده اللي يهمنا الناس اللي هناك او
انتوا سامعين مين؟ انتوا مش عاملين ميوت صح؟
لا احنا مش عاملين ميوت. هو سامع.
Very.
I don't think the mic is working. You see, it's not booming.
But they can hear us.
Just get it.
Yeah, make the out is from this thing.
No, the input. Yes. The USB thing. Does it have a turn on button or something?
Yeah, I think
It's working here, but YouTube, I think it doesn't.
Okay. So, is there anything for YouTube?
Okay,
Can you click on in the browser and then the last part on right? Up, right? Beside the favorite bookmark.
Here you mean?
Yes. If you can select the audio out. الصورة اللي جاية من على الموبايل الصوت من عليها تقريبا مش مسموع بصوت عمرو.
الموبايل انا قافله.
ايوه بس الصوت هنا مسموع.
لا ما شغال.
ثواني انا قافل الموبايل. انا قافل
في لينكين ده لينك قدام. يعني ده انا فاتحه ده مين ده مش فاهم. ده ولا ده؟
لو الصورة كويسة
يا باشا انا حطيتهم بس لازم يبقى في واحد على
That mic is not working. Okay, so okay. How about now? You still hear us, right? This mic is not connected, so you still hear us.
Oh, nice.
Loud and clear. Okay, cool.
What year? November 1st. So you originally came from Brazil? Yeah, awesome. See what president was lots of them. I mean, we met you quite good. Apparently the tech market in Brazil is quite good. So in Goiura and in Solando, there are lots of presidents.
وهنا 6 كمان كده 12 فجر. إلا لو في حد فتح اللينكين مع بعض هيتساوي.
This is unmute. This is happening video.
Yeah.
And it shows all of us, yeah?
It shows all of us.
Can you unmute?
Yes, this is your link.
Unmute. So you're good to go if you want.
Good to go?
This is this one.
No, it's not that one, but
Yeah, it's that kind of one. It's that one.
Mhm.
On the camera. It's this one. Which is this.
ready?
Okay.
All right.
Okay.
Hi, welcome to our first Ask Me Anything meeting. This meeting today is hosted and organized by two great organizations. One is the group of Egyptian techies in Berlin, and you're seeing many of the faces running that organization here. It's an association, as the name says, of Egyptian techies working in tech companies in Berlin. And we're really trying to draw on all of their expertise here tonight. And the second organization is Imagine Foundation. It's a social venture out of Berlin, and they run a career advisory service for people like you, techies from Middle Eastern countries, trying to break into the German market. My name is Johan. I'm the founder and CEO of Imagine, and it's my great pleasure and honor to have you guys all here tonight. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, so in the preparation of this, we've received more than 30 questions from our audience, and this event will be streamed live. Probably you guys are on the live stream already, and it will also be available after that in a canned version. If you still want to ask further questions, you can find the link to the Slido underneath this video. So please keep them coming. Nevertheless, we already took a look at all of your questions, and it really seems that there's one pattern, and that is this question that you all have. How can I work in Germany? How do I find a tech job in Germany? And in simple terms, I think there are two sides to this answer. One is, do you have to have the right skills? And second, you have to know how to market yourself. Today, we're focusing only on the skills part. Right? So which technologies, which tools, which languages, which frameworks do you have to know in order to be a good developer and find a job here? All right, without further ado, let's do a brief round of introductions. I'll hand it over to you, my friend.
Yeah. Hi guys, I'm Ahmed. I'm a software engineer at a company here called Zalando. We're working in fashion.
Yes, and I'm Mohammed Al-Awadi. I'm a software engineer. I'm basically Android developer. I work for a company called Vivi. It's health, secure health management systems.
My name is Khalid, and I work in Goyro, which is a travel company. It's also a software engineer.
Yeah, my name is Leandro. I work as engineer manager at GetYourGuide. It's an online travel agency. We sell activities and tours around the world.
Awesome. All right, and I think from what you're seeing here is we really cover the full spectrum. We have front-end and back-end guys, we have engineering managers, we have a mobile engineer, and soon we hope to also have a data scientist.
Yeah.
Great, so we're covering the entire spectrum of the big tech jobs, and the companies these guys are mentioning are really the top-notch big tech employers in Berlin, right? So congrats, guys, to landing jobs at these pretty cool companies.
Thank you.
They're all big, and I think even Go Europe has had a funding round of 150
million.
Yeah.
A couple of days ago.
Yeah, amazing. Good. So thanks for contributing to all of this. All right, so I think we should kick it off with the first question, and I think everybody of you might answer this slightly differently. But the big question is, what are the skills required? Right? Skills, technologies, languages, tools to do a great X job, and X for front-end, back-end, mobile, and overall engineering. Who wants to start?
I can.
Good.
So I work in backend and also I've done some front end, but I can only speak of the backend. So backend wise, mostly being profession in the most common thing is Java, and there are some projects that work with Node.js. So if you know Java, this is starting from Java 8 up to Java 11. We work with everything. And the mindset won't only be that I only develop software, but I also know how to operate it as part of the DevOps. So you can start from running your from the requirements part to running your project to deployment on AWS or Google Cloud, and to maintain it. Make sure that you know the types of deployments, the canary, the blue-green, and how to roll out features. From the language perspective, knowing a functional programming language like Scala, Clojure, Kotlin even are quite nice. And knowing some languages like Java, that's widely known, and also languages similar to or frameworks like Node or JavaScript for backend, that's also very useful.
How about Go or Ruby?
Go is also getting very popular, but it's mostly heading toward the DevOps part because most of the people use it to bootstrap Kubernetes clusters and also write some kind of adapters. It's really nice, and even in Goyro, we're trying to go toward Go a little bit. However, most of our services are written in Java and some other small services in Scala, and also frameworks that related to Scala. Similar to Finigo or something that's written by Twitter, Finatra, Finigo, or Akka framework for batch processing. So it's mostly covering all this small set of tools. It's not that much. Also knowing scripting like Python or Bash is very handy if you want to accomplish certain tasks or do some batch processing. So that's also
cool.
What you need to cover so that you can just progress.
Okay, you also mentioned cloud infrastructure, right?
Yes. Okay. And also, if you have an edge for something like Elasticsearch or Solar, that's really have a very good demand in Berlin. I mean, it's one of the highest paid technologies that if you know Elasticsearch pretty well, you can land in various teams that are trying to create a better search and better recommendation systems. So if you are aware of information retrieval systems like Solar Cloud, Solar, or Elasticsearch, those are very attractive.
Awesome. Cool. What do the front end guys say? Go ahead. Mobile.
Yes, I mean, in the end, it's like there are some foundations in which all the front end share. I'm talking about from the mobile perspective. This basic skills I call it is to how to manage the large code base, because most of us worked in small companies at some point, and they saw how big the code can grow. And for small apps, it's really tempting to like take shortcuts just to get things done. But after some time, it grows massively. So it's the main skill I see in the mobile technology or any mobile development is to be able to manage large code base, which has some principles and software quality skills you need to have, such as solid principles, for example, how to write clean code, how to write your code in a way that follows the design patterns that solves future problems that may come into place, and of course to stay up to date with the technology means you have to look at the latest technology in the market, the community. You have to participate in conferences. If you don't have the luxury to participate in the conference, you can watch some talks. This way you will increase your knowledge and you will gradually become better developer.
That sounds interesting. And to give some advice to our audience, like are there one or two technologies or languages that you would advise aspiring mobile developers should know?
Well, the market here I see in Germany doesn't go toward like cross platforms. even though it's tempting and there are some really nice frameworks, but still not mature yet. And a lot of big names are moving away from it, such as Airbnb and some part of, for example, Facebook has been reverted back to the native. So all the market is going toward native languages. So in Android, it's mainly going through towards Kotlin, and for iOS, it's all about Swift now.
Yeah.
Nobody's using Objective C anymore. But for the Android, it's mostly Kotlin, and Kotlin is trending. And I see also a lot of companies are moving 100% to Kotlin. So it's become like really mature, and you can use it in production.
Interesting. Yeah. Cool. Thank you. And how about web front end?
Yeah, where can I start from? It's like right now the ecosystem for front end is growing and evolving so fast, as all of us knows. But my first advice about front end is learn how to write JavaScript. That's it, right? Everyone thinks that he knows how to write JavaScript. I still think that I know how to write JavaScript, but I don't, right? No one knows. So this is the first advice, is to deep dive into the core of the JavaScript itself. And don't focus on CSS and HTML, right? Because we have a misconception in some Middle Eastern company that front-end development is a UI development, and these are two different things. UI development can be done by a designer, like an experienced designer can do front-end UI development, but front-end development is kind of real development that you deal with APIs, understanding RESTful APIs, understanding the HTTP responses and stuff like this. It goes beyond designing and developing the UI.
It's a web app.
Yes, it's a web app, exactly. So fortunately, I prepared for this question a couple of things, but it's in my laptop, and we are streaming from this laptop. But I have a list of skills and stuff in the technical side that you guys need to master in order first to pass the interviews, and in order to pass the probation period in your company, and then shine afterwards. If you give me 1 second, I just can open it.
Go ahead.
Yes. Sorry. Yeah. I just send it here to myself. And then. Oh, sorry. Sorry. So I have it here. So as I told you, JavaScript is very, very important. If you have if you are experienced in ES6, this is a big plus. And also one thing in front-end development is critical path rendering. I believe most of the front-end developers knows about critical path rendering, but you have to be prepared for this. You have to be able to answer a question, which one is blocking, which one is not, like CSS is blocking or not, JavaScript files are blocking or not, these kind of questions. Basic or medium Node.js knowledge, like for example, you need to deal with authentication as a front-end developer, not as a back-end developer, and also package management and bundles, stuff like this. Right now we have Rollup, we have Webpack, we have a lot of bundlers that helps you to ship your application. You might need to learn at least one of them and understand your needs and which one fits in your needs. Going further into the testing, any one of us can talk about testing for years, but please, yes, exactly. Please give a very, very careful and very, very much attention to the testing, specifically unit and functional testing, integration test, and end-to-end test for front-end is super important. Things like Docker right now is a requirement, at least for my company. As a front-end developer, I have to deal with Docker. I have to ship my application from end to end, at the end. Functional programming is so trending. If you know some functional programming, this will help you
improve your profile. By functional programming, we are talking about simple functional programming, not really functional programming, Haskell or something like this. I'm trying to be fast, but these are the things that this is the things that I personally touch in my daily work. Reactive programming is a big plus. If you know RxJS, it's very good. You can use RxJS with Angular or React or even Vue.js. It's just try to do pair programming a lot with your pairs, because it is required here in Germany to explain and express your ideas and to do pair programming with your colleagues. Maybe in your native language, in your home country, you can talk with your native language, but you have to practice how to talk to people with different culture and try to ship or deliver the idea that you have to them through code or through just articulating your idea. Static code analysis, have a look at ESLint, Prettier, these things. I've never touched it before I come to Germany, and then I figured out that it's super important, and it helped a lot in standardizing the way the team writes code. GraphQL is plus, server-side rendering is a plus also, if you know about it, and at the end, monitoring and communication skills. Communication skills, you have to focus on communication skills, and maybe we can take another question regarding this. Try to practice Codility for front-end development, sometimes for algorithms, simple algorithms and stuff like this. This will also help you to reach the level of passing the interviews.
Good, thank you.
It took so much time.
Yeah, that's wonderful, because I believe it's very helpful if we're very specific.
Yeah.
So Leandro, you're next, engineering manager. Is there anything that was missing so far what you're expecting people to know in bigger engineering teams?
I think maybe from the engineer point of view, we also wait for the developers and engineers to know exactly what you said about design patterns, how we apply solid principles, and basically in Get Your Guide, everything that was said here, it's a valid point from the front end. The only point that I would like to add is there are a lot of companies that still use PHP as the main language, and on that, most of the companies, they usually use Symfony as a framework, mainly Symfony 4. And it's not because it's PHP that you cannot develop good code, let's say, right? You can also apply the solid principles, you can also Dockerize your application. You can also be aware that some architecture like event sourcing, secure as it's good to know how you apply them and when you shouldn't apply them. And also some other topics like domain-driven design, which takes care about everything that has been said here on the problem space, which is like have this mindset of end-to-end. So you understand the problem you are trying to solve to better create the architecture that maps that part. So this is a very interesting thing. Don't only focus on the framework, also try to focus on the end-to-end, because this is what drives your choice on architecture.
Great. And we keep on hearing about microservice architectures and Docker, etc. Can you stress the importance of that?
Yes, sure. The main importance for me is, as you also pointed out, as your code base grows, your company also grows. And sometimes we just do changes in our organization, don't do changes in the code. So we don't care because we have short-term goals. So we start changing the goal, the source codes. We don't care about others. We don't care about readability. So there is one thing that's called like Commons law, that the source code is there is a relationship between your source code and the organization structure. So microservice is not like one solution fits all. Microservices needs to be done carefully because it comes with other complexity. So it's still possible to have a monolithic application that has well-defined modules where you can use the solid principles to do that. The main point is microservice, it's good to know the standards and how to apply them and the drawbacks of that solution. So microservices, read about it, always try to, for each article that says that microservice is good, there are other two that says that microservices are not good. But everything depends on the problem you're trying to solve. At Get Your Guide specifically, we are preparing an infrastructure that allows the teams to create the services in the size they want. If it's a micro, if it's a API-based solution, you as engineer need to decide the pros and cons of all solutions about your application.
Got it. Okay, thank you. Welcome, Mohammed.
Yeah, sorry for being late.
Good to have you. You're representing data science and maybe data engineering and analysis to some extent. Do you want to give a quick intro into who you are and where you work?
Okay, so I've been working in Germany for 2 years right now. So yeah, split I have. So I have worked for 1 year in Goyoro as a data scientist, mainly on the ranking search results based on machine learning, and for 1 year, almost 1 year with Careem, which is a ride-sharing company.
We all know.
Yeah, operating in this. Yeah, it's just a context if anyone is not aware. And also working on dynamic pricing, so based on machine learning and statistical analysis. And that's the summary. Right?
You're increasing the price of my rides. Yeah?
Yes, to make the rides available. I mean, we're not the bad guy, we're the good guy.
Okay.
High price is better than not available.
Of course, cool. And can you also comment on the key languages, technologies, and frameworks that you're using at Careem as a data scientist?
Yeah, so mainly we are using Jupyter Notebook. So it's let's focus first about the targets for this. So the target is to develop machine learning and analyzing the data, and the most important part is the expressiveness of your work. So you have to create a model and you have to express to stakeholders, for example, product managers, software engineers, why we choose this model, what are the trends in the data, how, for example, when the price decrease, how this affects the customer behavior. So all this kind of analysis have to be embedded in the code. So, we usually use Python or R as the main programming for machine learning. And especially for the scalability, we use Apache Spark for the data retrieval and for scaling the machine learning model. So let's say that the first part is creating the model using Python and R, and the second part is the scaling and the data using Apache Spark, also which has is mainly on Scala, programming Scala, but you can also have a nice Python interface. So that's in a nutshell the software stack we're using.
Interesting. I would love to ask a follow-up question. That is, there's a lot of confusion out there in the world about the role of a data scientist. Like, can you, using your example, say how much modeling do you do, how much data engineering do you do? Like, what are the typical roles at Careem?
Yeah, that's a very good question. Actually, I don't have the complete answer, but I'll answer it based on my experience. So it's a pretty new area. I mean, it's based on statistical analysis and machine learning, which is a quite old area. But I mean, because of the booming the data science and the data size for all the companies, so it's a new area, relatively new area. So in a nutshell, data science, let's say it's split in two roles, and every company have like the data science / machine learning, data science / product. So I work on this basis. I think it's also here in Get Your Guide. So let's say data science / analysis. He's focusing more on analyzing. So typically he works in a cross-functional team. So for example, let's say dynamic pricing team. He gives analysis. So what if we increase the price? How will the supply will affect? How will the demand will affect? How we're going to personalize the pricing to customize a solution for each cluster of customers. So let's say this is the first part, and he's focusing on analyzing the data and representing the conclusions and supporting this with the statistical hypothesis testing, A/B testing, etc. And the other part is data science / machine learning, which is more closely working with back-end engineers. So after all the analysis, we came with a fantastic algorithm based on machine learning. So so they focus more on the scalability of the machine learning algorithms, how we're going to collect data, the automation of the process, all this kind of etc. So these are the two main things. Plus the data engineer, which provides the muscle to the whole pipeline. So he scaled the algorithm, for example, to trillions or millions of records, and so that, for example, you like Google, for example, when you search for something, you instantly see the ads related to your search criteria. That's how this works.
Awesome, thank you. Very helpful.
Thank you.
All right, I hope that this has really comprehensively answered this first question, like what are the required technologies and skills in each one of these jobs. So let's move on now. So let's take a look at the above question here. So basically, we keep on hearing that. How do you break into the German market as a junior, let's say with 2 years of work experience? Did any one of you did that, or when did you guys come? Who was the most junior when he came?
Well,
You look junior.
Yes, so I came. Oh, sorry. So I came to Germany when I was having like 2 years, 2.5 years experience, and I believe that the most demanding skill they see in people to decide whether to hire them or not is the ability to learn and to discover more things by their own. So when you have 2 years of experience, but your knowledge says that this guy knows how to learn and this guy discovered this and learned this amount of knowledge, then probably he can grow. So it's an investment after all.
Yeah.
So when an employer try to hire somebody, it's just an investment. So I need to see the return on investment in the future self, in the future hired people. So I think this is like the most important thing in the people with junior experience is, well, also in Egypt we have we have hard workload. So you can call whoever junior in Egypt as a senior in the term of how many hours they do work.
Okay.
Yes. So we sometimes stay at night at work. We sleep at work sometimes. So the amount of experience we gain in Egypt is huge. It's huge compared to other countries. So I think this is like one of the advantage of like working in such harsh environment is you get to know more information and more experience, and you will you will know how to find that information.
Yeah.
So it will cultivate this learnability in yourself.
And this showing that you're able to grow and to learn, you once told me about podcasts, right? Can you maybe
Yes.
give an example of how you learned certain things from podcasts?
Yes. So of course I used to listen to Android specific podcasts. Some podcasts called Fragmented. It's Android podcast, and there are some couple of newsletters. Android specifically is technical. It's called, for example, Android Weekly. And the good thing about the newsletter is it's just gather the top the most experienced people. They look after their blogs and their talk and their open source projects, and they group it all together in one newsletter. So it's really beautiful to find such information all gathered in one place. Yeah.
Cool. Any other tips on learning and growing resources online?
One tip. Sure. One tip. Whenever you have a problem and you want to understand something, try to read about it and then try to watch a video about it. Just exchange reading and watching videos towards one tech stack or one thing that you're trying to learn gives you different perspective of how do you learn it. So if you're a video person or a watching person, try to read. If you're a reading person, try to watch on the same subject. This is super helpful for me. Also, try to look into open sources. Try to find any open source that you can at least participate in by answering questions or updating the README or something like this, and one by one you will be involved in this. The very important point here is to see some code from people who are not in the same team as you, to see how other people think, to see how they solve the problem, whatever the complexity of the problem. Try to take your time, even if you talk like a week to understand one function, how it goes in something like this, but insist to understand the input and the output of this function, try to understand it correctly, and try to provide a better proposal or a proposal to improve this this function from a time perspective or from space perspective, whatever.
Thank you.
And one thing to add here, sorry for interrupting, it's since all of us work with open source technology, sometimes it's really helpful to dig deeper in the source code and see how things work. This actually can solve a lot of huge problems because some people handle the code as a black box. You don't know what's inside. So don't be afraid to dig deeper in the code and see how things work. And probably, for example, in the Android, you have the source code for all the Android versions. So you can go back in time, back to 2008 and see how the evolving of each function and how it's right now. So this actually solves a lot of mysterious problems that people encounter and they go and directly ask in Stack Overflow. But of course, the Stack Overflow is really helpful, but some people actually don't take the step and to see how things work. And yeah, just something to add as
cool. Thank you.
Yeah, I can add another thing here on top of learning, but in this case is learning how as a junior come to Berlin. I'm not experienced in like the junior market here itself. We have jobs for sure, either for big companies that want to make investment, either for small companies that don't have a lot of funding, and they want people that get things done. Doesn't matter the quality or you are learning on the fly. For people who wants to come here as a junior, I would suggest try to go to an interview that's not junior, but be aware that there you're going to learn something. See where you are failing, see where you need to improve on the technical part. And I can say this advice not only for juniors, for anyone. I can say, for example, to be where I am right now, I failed like 15 interviews. Every interview, I knew where I failed. I dive into that topic, and I use all the strategy we just mentioned here. I dive into the topic. It's a very good opportunity to learn. And of course, it's frustrating not passing an interview and things like that. But if you put in your mind that you're there to learn, you can learn even an interview. The problem is like 1, 2, 3 interviews you fail, you don't do this reflection about what would I be, where I was failing. And sometimes push for the company to give you feedback on the technical side. If you need. Sometimes even you have a good technical background, but sometimes you failed on some other skills, maybe English, for example, that you can something like, okay, maybe I need to listen to more podcasts in English, maybe you can try to practice, something like that. So like, keep learning from the failures you have. It's for me, it's a very, very, very good point to achieve your goals.
And Mohammed, maybe one question for you.
For my perspective, I will be more specific on my recommendation. So the first part regarding the data engineering, I have done this myself, is, for example, like Apache Spark or this kind of technology are not that mature, and they have a lot of gaps where you can contribute code, and you have a lot of open issues where you can help fixing problems, documenting this. And from data science perspective, I think Kaggle is a great resource where you can get a flavor about what machine learning model to use, what are the real world data sets, because there are competitions that are issued by companies. They post a fraction of their data set, and they want people to compete how to the best model, who are going to predict, blah, blah, blah. So I think side projects are a good tool for increasing your level from junior to senior in the minimal amount.
Awesome. Cool. Thank you.
Yeah, adding on the side project thing, it's don't be afraid to create a repository on your GitHub account and fork one of the projects. I remember like a few years ago, I forked the Apache Solr, and it was like moving things around and refactoring, and I wanted to create a pull request that was tons of files, and went over the Solr repository, and I was checking the pull request, how they form the pull request, what's the scope of the pull request, and how they chain things. I still have the fork on my side, but the point that don't be afraid to create, to experiment something. For example, if you, from backend perspective, if you want to create a service, you didn't work with the Scala before and you want to learn, you can bootstrap something that's doing a small project for yourself. play with it, experiment all the language capabilities, all the technology and frameworks capabilities in your playground project, and include this in your CV. Eventually, you will have the GitHub link, and probably when you send your resume, at least if 10% of the people to whom you send your CV check the repository, they may see something in you. I mean, if you are a junior and you are trying to do something, if you are a senior and creating something and also using the solid principles as part of your project, maybe one of those people would fork your fork, or fork your repository, or even like it, or something like this.
Yeah.
So it's really nice, and it can teach you how to document your code, how to write proper code, how to even create a Docker. You already have Google Cloud give you a free account, AWS give you a free account, and you can just create something. You can even serve traffic on it.
Okay.
And you can just share it with people, get feedback on it, get feedback on an actual thing from a product perspective, not just see my code. So having this sense of end-to-end responsibility and also playing around is really, really
Playing
useful.
around is good.
Yeah.
Nice, thank you. I think we touched on this topic of technical interviews. It was mentioned by some of you, and I guess you all are involved in technical interviews, right? Yes. So why don't we do a quick fun round, and everybody shares like one thing they'd like to see in technical interviews or they like to test, and one typical mistake, mistakes that people are doing, particularly people who are coming from outside of Germany here. Who wants to start? You're looking at me like this.
So one thing that I would like to see is how do you approach a problem, not what is the end result of a problem, right? So if there is an issue, I don't care what is the result. I care what are the steps that you take to solve this issue. This includes how you think. You have to think loudly. You have to let me know what is your expectation, and also you have to ask questions. If you didn't ask questions, I immediately knows that you are jumping into a conclusion, and this could be a big mistake, and it could be a big loss for the company that you're working for. If you started to implement something and it's not what the company needs. A thing that what is the others?
The good thing and the bad thing, but you covered both.
Yes, I covered those. The bad thing is not asking questions simply. This is the most critical one, not asking questions to understand and gather the requirement and deep dive in the exact requirement that the interview wants you to implement or to.
Thanks.
Thank you.
You want to go next?
So I want to start by the bad thing that you should not do. You should never answer something that you're not 100% sure it is. Because some people have this perception that if I didn't answer, if I said I don't know, then I will fail. This is completely wrong. If you say I don't know, that means you respect the interviewer and you understand your limits, which is really good for as a quality that to see in the applicants, because you don't want somebody to be hired in your team who can take random decisions they don't know what the consequences are. And back to the good thing I like to see in people, I like to see in people how they before they're using things, they need to understand why do we have this thing in the very beginning. Because sometimes we use things and we use some methodologies and use some patterns, for example, in the code, but we don't actually understand the reason why we have this in the first place. So we start making mistakes, and we making the things that this pattern meant to solve actually. So just because it's cool and a lot of people talking about it and the community is trending, I have to use it. It's not necessary. Maybe it doesn't solve your problem. It just end up a new problem to your problem.
Cool. Thank you.
Okay. I want to say so the good thing, I focus on two things to be precise. First thing, understanding the purpose of the tools and libraries, why they are made, and understanding the details. of different tools that you're using, either technology-based, either something that's very fundamental as data structures and algorithms. That's a very internal thing. The second thing just a weird thing, which is team dynamics, how people interact with whatever they have worked with before, if they have been into conflicts, how they resolved it. And I seek for micro expressions about how they do this. And about how, because I interview people to be part of my team. And it's very important to see how people work with others and how people are resolving problems and conflicts. And that's one of the things I'm looking for. The bad thing, it's not a bad thing, but I mean, it's not really good that you, as mentioned, the point that you mentioned, you explain things that you don't understand at all, and you explain them with a confidence. Like, I have no idea what I'm doing, and you're just saying what you are assuming. If you want to do this, say beforehand, I have no idea, but I can give it a guess. Do you mind if I can say that? And then the interviewer would say, yeah, why not? And then you will engage into a discussion instead of just throwing information and people are just judging how you are working with things. So that's I see this as a negative part of it.
We're receiving strong signals to speed it up a little bit. So do you have anything short to add?
Quickly, sorry. What I don't like when I ask which technology would you choose, GoLang. I see these a lot of PHP developers. Why? And they don't know how to explain why. The focus is on the technology. So sometimes it's good to know why that technology is good at. What I like is when I see some soft skills, like be aware that feedback culture is very important, mainly here in Germany. How can you approach different cultures? How can you talk to others? How can you be assertive when you talk? So those soft skills, they are as much as important as the technical ones.
Cool, thanks.
Okay, so quickly it is in the same direction. So we're talking from data science, for example. The good thing is that sometimes people spend a lot of reading about different techniques, for example, machine learning before they come to the interview. But the negative thing is that they don't spend some time about understanding when works well. I mean, there is no one thing that fits all, or because, for example, most of the Kaggle competition using like an automatic machine learning, so you'll use it and solve all the problem. You have to spend some time to understand what works well and what doesn't work well and what are the situations. I think it's better than just there is one technique that solves all the problem. It doesn't work very well.
Thank you. All right, so because this is an Ask Me Anything, let's make sure that we're burning through some questions here. So first question is, I'm trying to get a job remotely and I'm failing to win one. Now my idea is to apply for a 6-month visa. It's a job-seeking visa for Germany, quit my job and travel and search within Germany. Is that a good idea? Yes or no?
Do it. This is my answer. Just do it. If you worked in Egypt for a couple of years or 1 year or something like this, I personally encourage you to do it. Jump out of your comfort zone, come here, search, and you most likely will find a job.
Does everybody agree with that? Because it's a high-risk strategy, right?
Yes. I mean, I can say something about it. I am married, I have kids, and jumping to a foreign country with no backup, you can take a vacation for like a month or something and take visa, but you need to make sure that you have already spent some quality time working on your profile, working on some technologies, shape what you really want to do. For example, back-end, front-end, focus on the technologies that we mentioned, and also ask everyone in the community before you actually come, because when you come, you will be wasting time applying for different companies and having some interviews. Then you can go, when you do this, then you can just switch to a blue card visa and then bring your family in here. So it depends on the person, it depends on the conditions, but just make sure that you do your homework first. Don't just come here. Do your part first.
Very, very important.
One point to add here, make sure your technology are popular in Germany.
Mhm.
So I wouldn't expect somebody who has, who hasn't like went into like 5 interviews before they take this decision.
Mhm.
Because if you are working with like technology that not being used in Germany, and there are some technologies such as Microsoft technologies,
Mhm.
some of them. I wouldn't suggest such thing, but
Yeah.
make sure to have like vacancies or at least you applied for 10 different job and you had interviews.
Cool. So prepare yourself and maybe have a backup plan and know that it's still a high risk strategy, right?
Yes,
And I guess none of you guys has done the strategy to get here, right?
I know a couple does it.
Okay.
And it worked.
Okay, because I also know people where it didn't work.
Yeah,
so this
exactly.
is just
Sure,
why
sure.
I want to be a
Manage
little bit
the
cautious.
expectations.
It's
Yes.
cool. All right. Next question, and I guess I want to ask Leandro this. How hard is it if you only have only a freelance background to find an opportunity in Europe? How do employers look at people like that?
Yeah, usually it's not a good sign if you want to go to a more career development here. Usually people see, okay, it's not a freelancer, so usually they don't even pass the screen on LinkedIn or CV. Usually this is somehow how people look into that, and I'm being very honest on that. Having said that, I would suggest you where you want to be here. You want to also to continue as a freelancer because we also have opportunity for freelancers. And if you apply for freelancer position, it's fine. You have a very good CV in that direction. If it's not, I would shape your CV and I also change the mindset to learn different things because for freelancers sometimes it's one way of building things. For like building a career is a different thing. So it's like it's just an opportunity. If you're a freelancer and you don't develop yourself and you try to build a career, you probably will get more no's than yes.
Cool. And let me add, so we know a couple of people who've done long-term freelancing with a Spanish company or Danish company or German company, and this is typically seen as a strong signal of people's cultural adaptability. So it depends on what type of freelancing you're doing. Cool. Next question. What's the best website to find a tech job in Germany out of your personal experience? Mohammed?
From my experience, LinkedIn, I mean, the whole is where I got my job. I think also Stepstone, I think is one of the websites. I think it's Germanized. I mean, it's focusing on the German market. Yeah, these are both, I mean, that I think that they have like 80% maybe of the opportunities.
Yeah, I would personally also add Indeed because it's aggregating lots of other jobs. So this is also very helpful.
I would also include the Glassdoor because Glassdoor is a two-way thing, right? You also evaluate the company there. You see how the company is.
Yeah.
It's not only about you getting a job, it's also the company getting a good developer. So you can also evaluate the company. You might not choose that company specifically because it does not fit with your requirements on the culture point of view.
Some people also got some interviews from Stack Overflow. So Stack Overflow does have some jobs and people actually getting some interviews from there.
Cool.
Also, we prepared a year ago, I think, one of our friends, Hisham, just prepared an Excel sheet with all German companies or specifically Berlin companies that help in relocating, relocating people and help in the visa and stuff like this. We can share it with you afterwards.
Yeah, another hint. I just signed up for Berlin startup jobs on Slack.
Are you looking for a job?
No, I'm not. It's not only job, sorry. It's Berlin startup group. There is a channel called jobs. There is a channel called events and things like that. And I was like realized that there is a lot of opportunity for junior positions there. So usually in small companies they have seed, capital, things like that.
So it's a Slack channel, right?
Yeah, it's like channel.
Slack is a messenger or chat, right?
Yeah,
just for people who doesn't know what is
Slack. Slack is like the new IRC. Let's say.
Cool. Yeah, and let me add, this is the question of where to find jobs, and a mistake that I'm seeing very often is that people are applying to 10, 15, 20 jobs a week, but that also means that they're not really looking at the job description, not really making a strong pitch for the specific company and the specific job. And I strongly advise to really invest into each opportunity, look at it carefully, and like send out 5 a week or more if you can. But really invest into each opportunity. Cool. All right, next one. We actually okay. Anyways, the order is changing. You can read it, but is a degree in software engineering or even a master's degree in software engineering necessary to work here in Germany? So I believe there's an administrative blue card side to things, but just from the work, coming from the work. Do you work with people who do not have an engineering or computer science degree?
I can answer this. I don't have a computer science degree. And
What's your degree?
Use an example.
I'm a linguist.
Really?
Yes, I'm not a computer science at all, and I have a blue card, and I am so comfortable in working here, and I didn't face any problems. Yes, you might face some challenges in your visa and stuff like this, but if your company, if you made your interview and made it through the interview, and the company supports you with some documents that says that we need this guy and stuff like this, and you have experience letters from your previous company that proves that you are experienced, it is okay to come and work here. And I know some people even without a degree at all. They are with Sanaway Amma in Egypt. It's
a high school.
It's a high school in Egypt. So it is not a blocker at all.
Cool.
In some companies, not all companies, but in most companies, I didn't see this is a restriction to hire someone.
And for the master degree, I think some jobs require master degree, but it's mostly R&D. So research and development. So because it's the essence of the R&D. So to have the knowledge and to able to research and to read papers and to develop things. But for the software engineering, I in my experience in Germany, which is 3 years, I moved between 3 to 4 different companies. I mean, a lot of people, just couple of people had master degree, and it's not considered at all. So I just by accident know that they have master degree.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I mean, frankly, in Germany, it's I believe still quite common to do a master's degree, but our bachelor is only 3 years. So it's so when employers say master degree, it's just a proxy very often for a certain seniority or a certain level of experience.
I will add something. If you are, that's what I've seen, if you are going to work in research or working in data science, some companies require that you have a master's degree or a bachelor in statistics or mathematics or computer science with a strong portfolio for doing something like this. Of course, Badar can confirm this or add something to this. But for the degree thing of computer science for software development, I know someone in Berlin who actually is a CTO and he didn't finish college in Egypt. And he came in here and he's a CTO. He still didn't finish it, by the way. So, and he's really, really good. And he have been a consultant in Egypt for different companies, for different startups. And one of the companies that got away from Rocket Internet contacted him in specific, and then he came. So he's still young, and he have many contributions in the open source, and also have quite good GitHub portfolio.
Cool.
So
nice.
From my perspective, I mean, certificate is not a proof of your experience. So, I mean, for example, you can have a knowledge that's equivalent to master. For me, I have a master degree, but I mean, you may have a knowledge that is equivalent to master without having it. I mean, it's not a mandatory. I have seen many people working data science without master. It might be an advantage for you to do your job better. Might be an advantage, but you can elevate this advantage by self-learning. So I think it's not a must at all.
Okay.
Yes, I can add something here. Like you don't need necessarily a blue card. You can just have the work permit if you don't have all the requirements. And also, I heard in the news that Germany is like making easier for people to get the visa. Like 2 or 3 weeks ago, I saw this in the news. So people who have like proven that they have very good background, technically speaking, they are like making it easy to get a visa.
Yeah, there are some discussions right now.
Yeah, I
Um,
just read it.
yeah.
And I also heard that Microsoft and Apple and Google and a couple of big companies dropped the condition to have bachelor degree in order to apply for a software engineering positions. So this can also like encourage people more to engage into software engineering because it's learnable.
Yeah. And if I may add, so from knowing the company and recruiter side a little bit, everybody knows that things are easier if you can get a blue card, and you can more easily get a blue card if you have a bachelor's, and in particular if you have a bachelor that is a MINT degree like engineering, computer science, etc., etc. So basically, if you don't have it, it's apparently not a showstopper, but make sure that you are in contact with people who don't have such a degree. And second, and I'd like to stress that, make sure that in that case in particular, you understand the rules of the game, how to get certain types of visa here in Germany, and we can share some knowledge about that with you as well. Yeah, because basically, if you know that you cannot get the blue card, then to some extent it's a little bit more on you to tell employers under which conditions they can still employ you. Yeah, cool. All right, knowing German. How important is it to know German to get a job?
I know zero. I only know German numbers, nothing else.
Well,
Which are Arabic numbers, anyways.
Maybe the question would be, how many people in this room can speak German?
So
It's only you, maybe because you are German.
Okay, who has a B1 level German here? Fantastic. Okay.
A1.
A1.1.
Or A1.1. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
it's still also A1.1. So it's
Okay, fantastic. So please tell me, obviously, apparently in the companies you're only speaking English, right?
Yes.
And there's no requirement to speak any German. Is it ever a problem?
No, but to set some expectations, in your work and your career, you will not face this problem, but in your social life, you might face it. So all of us, to some extent, we suffer from communication in the society. It works, but English in Berlin specifically, but if you come to any other city, I cannot judge, but in Berlin, you can live with your English, but it is so preferable if you can speak German. Your life would be much easier, but now our life is easy.
Yeah, I also can say that people who are married and they have kids, it's very good to have some knowledge of German because of the Kita, which is the German school. I have friends from Brazil that don't speak German, so they need to go to school, and who is translating is his daughter. So we never know.
Yeah, I can also add to this. So indeed, Berlin is special as a city. I'm a Berliner. And also Berlin employers are different. So you guys are really representing the new companies in Germany, big web development companies. And still Germany is much more. We all know the big car manufacturers, and there's big German industry that is also hiring tech talents. And they're moving more slowly. So even in big corporations like Otto Group and above in Hamburg, they're running About You. You still have a German requirement. So frankly, if you know some German, it's very, very helpful, in particular actually as a signal when you're applying, right? Because you're really showing to an employer that you are looking at the opportunity and that you are willing to invest into the opportunity to come and work and live in Germany.
Yeah, I just want to add one point, because if you are going to segment the market, there are the mid-level companies and there are the large corporates of the German industry. So I think the large corporates, because I have experience in some interview for technical, for me I was good. But the problem is that they often require that some German communication with other industry stakeholders.
Yes.
And they are German. And they speak German and they prefer to speak German even they speak English. So let's say that speaking German will widen your options. It is not a must, but it widens your options.
Yeah. Awesome. Cool. Thank you. Very helpful. Okay, here's a bit of a generic question. What are the top 5 challenges facing newly Berlin techies? So I've seen a similar question that basically said, what was hardest for you when you came to Germany? So So it can also be in your social life. What was most difficult?
I think we all can agree.
Getting an apartment.
Getting an apartment?
Getting a kita for the kids.
Yes.
Finding
Okay.
kindergarten.
I have the same problem.
Yeah, kindergarten for kids. Not understanding much German.
Yeah.
And trying to deal in the supermarkets and everything like that. And
German
I mean,
bureaucracy,
that's-
lots of paper for
It's German bureaucracy.
paperwork. Yeah,
Paper.
paperwork. Yeah.
Paperwork and like reading letters that comes from mail.
Mhm.
Let's say the main problem I have today when I
Yeah.
receive the health insurance
Oh,
letters.
Yeah.
I don't know
Google
what to do.
Translate.
Yeah, it's
It doesn't work.
Honestly,
Yeah.
sometimes I still struggle with understanding it when it's in German.
And you're
it's-
German.
Let's say Germany is a very difficult operating system, and it really it's good if you're in here and you've been in here for a long time, and you know, yeah, it's
Dealing with government employees who are older. I mean, young people in the government are usually taught to speak English, but for the older people who can never speak English word. So
You smile. This is the key.
just
Smile, yeah.
Well, sometimes I use Google Translate to translate the voice instantly. Some people, some of them accept, some of them totally deny.
Yeah, but I can add something. The group of expats that we have in Berlin is quite large. So you don't find only Egyptians. You can find people from all over the world, and there are a lot who face the same problem. So there are different groups even on the Facebook. If you want to ask something, you will probably get some help from anyone who faced this problem. People have been here for like 20, 25, 30 years, and they live perfectly well. Even not without an extreme level of German.
And there's a lot of Facebook groups where they exchange the knowledge and how to do things if you don't have German, not German. So there's a like free advice Berlin and a lot of expats Facebook groups.
Cool.
There is also a Berlin repository on GitHub called Awesome Berlin. So
Awesome Berlin,
yeah,
okay.
so you have a lot of hints there. You can also contribute.
Yeah.
It's an engineer who did this. Right?
Yeah,
It's
nice.
super
Nice.
nice.
Cool, thank you. But that means basically what was not very difficult was getting a visa, right? So basically, once you have a job offer, then getting a visa is
Straightforward.
straightforward. Great, because this is also one of our beliefs, and this is why we're helping people get a job.
I would agree, but not 100% because some people can struggle to get the visa if they don't have the matching degree in what they are going to do. So sometimes it takes time, but don't give up. If you reject it and you have a job offer, just try again and again, and at some point you will succeed.
Yeah. Plus, I mean, there's lots of help available. I'm not that I'm suggesting that there are literally visa agents out there in Germany, some of which I know. They're trustful and they're not ripping you off, and it's like 400 euros. It's a lot of money, but still, I think it's worth using them if you're in really dire need. Yeah. Cool. All right. Level of English. I might be able to answer this very quickly because I talk to lots of recruiters, and basically they say like you don't have to have perfect English. Actually, you can also have a strong accent. It's important that people understand you and that they can communicate with you in their natural speed. So basically at the speed at which we're speaking here. That's the minimum level. It does not have to be perfect.
I would also add one thing, because this is a very, very common question that I've been asked from a lot of people that I know, and some of them does not even apply for a job because of the language barrier. So guys, when we came here, when we started to speak English, we were not talking like this. So the way that we are talking, we are still learning English, we're not perfect. When we came here, we could not just compose one sentence fluently or smoothly. So just try and keep trying, and by working with people who speaks the same language again and again, this will improve your language in almost 3 months or something like this. So don't be afraid to practice and start with whatever you have. And if you can understand us right now, it's a good start.
Cool, fantastic. That's very encouraging. Thanks. All right. Okay, it's a wild mix of questions. So here's a very technical one, potentially for our backend guys here.
Yeah.
Have you read it already?
Yeah, I developed C++ solutions on Linux environment with an experience with Qt. What are my chances in Germany? So, and I can speak of, there are, one of the good things in Germany that I have found in the past couple of years, that C++ developers are actually the highest paid engineers in Germany. I mean, really, really the highest. So you can, if you know advanced C++ practices, and you also know, I know there are different companies in here. There's Red Hat, there are ThinkCell, there are different, eBay is actually working with C++. There are different companies here. There are not many, but they focus on what are the practices that you do. So check out the best practices. Qt is a nice thing to use. You can check the latest C++ versions and try to build up some projects on GitHub and formulate your project with, formulate your profile and your CV with different projects that you have worked on in your company and also in GitHub project, and try to apply and also learn for your interviews. Apply for something and then see how things will go. And also you can, what else? You can check the CPP kind of conferences that are hosted by Broen or something like this, and then you can check out what are the latest features and everything. One thing related to C++, there are some automotive companies need C++, but not just in Berlin. There are outside of Berlin, and those will have a couple with German language. So check out the opportunities. In Berlin, there are some companies don't require language. Outside, when you go to automotive or something related to electronics, which is embedded or some interfaces on top of it, then it requires German.
Okay, cool, thank you. I think the next question we already answered, so that was more on technical skills needed for backend engineers. All right, let's move to the interesting topic of salaries. So the question here is, what's the average salary for around 3 years experienced backend developer in Germany? I guess it's probably very hard to answer that, right?
Yeah, it's a range. I think it's a range. Can go from, you can check on Glassdoor to just get the range, sense of range, but I can say it's above 55, but below that. I mean, if you're C++, then you can add 10K to this easily, but I don't think it should exceed something like 65. I don't think it will exceed that. So,
Leandro, do you want to maybe comment on the overall pyramid somehow? Like what are
it
the
depends
levels
really,
and the salaries?
Depends really on the company. I would say you're right. The range is around 55 to 60, 65 for 2 years experience. But this is growing, I would say. That's the good part. I would say that 1-2 years from now, the salaries, I've been here for 3 years and I know that the salaries 2 years ago were like much lower than now, I would say. So keep an eye on that. I would say for seniors, like you had 10, 15K more than that. I think this is exactly what's happening right now.
Cool.
But it really depends on the company and the moment of the company.
And help me understand, what advice would you give to people who want to come from Middle Eastern countries now to Germany? Like, how important should salary be for your first job in Germany?
I can say if you're married and have kids, your taxes won't be high. And you also have benefits like Kindergeld, which is money that you get for your children. Kitas are for free. You don't pay much, and Berlin is very cheap compared to other places. So it's not that expensive. But if you have 3 years experience and you are even within this range, it's good that you can come over and also grow here. If you want to come up for if you are more senior individual and you have a higher salary, then it's also quite good. If you're single, then you'll pay more taxes. If you're married, you'll pay less.
One thing to add is a very, very basic thing, guys. The numbers that we are talking about here is annual salary, because in Egypt we don't deal with annual salary a lot, and it's somehow, it might confuse someone. This is the annual salary. There is a website that you can calculate what are the deducted amount of money of your salary. We can share it later on whenever a recruiter or someone tells you this is our budget. Go to this website, add your family members and stuff like this, and it will calculate on briefly or like approximately what are you going to have. And one more advice is always to try to find someone to ask in person, and try to ask about very, very simple stuff like how much I can spend as a family of two to eat or to transport or something like this. Just try to have an exchange conversation with someone is here and we are a lot, and just pick someone from any channel, LinkedIn or whatever, tell him I have a job offer and I want to ask these questions, and he will directly answer you, sir.
Yeah, and it's important to consider the location, because the salaries in Berlin is different than Munich, for example, and also the rent is different and the lifestyle is different, and also because we're not used to have this gross and net. So we always calculate how much will I get at the end of the month.
Yeah.
So the salary, usually the employer negotiate the salary with how much the amount, including the taxes. So as Ayub says, you have to put it on this website, Porto, I think it's.
Yeah. Also Netto-Rechner.
Yeah, exactly. So you have to put because to calculate the net, it's a difficult calculation. So this website take care of things based on the questions you have to, or like options you have to select.
Cool. Yeah, and if I may add, so if you imagine you had a job that pays 50K, so 50,000 euros gross salary per year, then from my personal experience, taxes in the end are always around, so this is rough now, but 40%. Yeah, plus or minus, but even if you're married, it's still quite a lot. So you have 50 gross, you end up with around 33K net per year. And if that costs you maybe 1,000 per month. Yeah. Cool. All right, but
Can you take the second to the top question, because it is specific?
Please.
The first one, anyone can answer, any nationality can answer, but the second one is Arab and Muslim.
Please go ahead.
I would like to take this one because it was a concern for me.
Can you repeat that question?
Yes, I can repeat the question, sorry. How hard to start a new life in the German community, especially for Arab and Muslim people? So I'm Arabic and Muslim, and my wife is wearing hijab. And for me personally, me or my wife, we didn't face any racism here in Germany, although we heard that before we come here, it's very hard and stuff like this. But I personally didn't face any problems. My wife also didn't face any problems. Maybe some people just look at you strangely because of their skin color or because of what you wear, but no one ever tried to harass you. There are some situations, but it's a very, very rare situation, and I personally didn't face it.
Yeah.
Because this was a question that I asked to my recruiter actually before I take the decision to come here, whether my wife would be harassed or something like this because of some. In the Middle East, we have a different idea about Germany, right? And this idea didn't change in my mind until I came here and I visited other European countries or cities. And I would say it is safe for Arabic and Muslim people to come here in Germany.
Can I, because that sounds so interesting, what were misconceptions you had about Germany and Europe before you came? So things that turned out to be wrong in Europe.
Yes, first of all, I didn't think that my wife with hijab can live here easily. I didn't think that I can find halal food, because this is super important for us, for some of us, to eat halal food. And these two things here, halal food is more than Egypt, I would say. We have here a lot of things that is halal because of Turkish markets and Syrian market. Everything is here. So if you are concerned about this, don't worry. It's safe, and it's a
convenient and a very good company to live in.
And I think also one of the reasons why people may get misconception about Germany, because there was some incidents happened in Germany for Muslim girls. For example, Mawar Shirabini has been killed in Germany, in the East Germany, in Dresden, I think, and by one of the racists. And it's actually not like the common pattern or like the common situation that happens here, but these kind of small incidents that affect the public opinion about Germany and how people are living there. But as Germany opens to refugees, it's actually changed the culture, how people perceive the outsiders, and it's actually changed the way they look and the political view, negative or positive. But it's actually there was some changes that happens here in Germany.
And changes positive since 2015,
Yes,
or
in a way it's positive, but also some negative because of some incidents. So it's changing. So there's no like stereotype image that always happening if you mention Germany.
anything else, guys?
Yeah, from my side, I think just like any country, you have good people and bad people. So yeah, well, I know we have some stereotyping about Germany, but people being conservative, not very open to the outside world. But at least I met a few German friends and in the two companies I've worked on, they are very open. There is no problem. It may depends on level of education, level of perception, level of openness, perception about the world. So I think it's like any country, like United States, like Great Britain.
Yeah.
It's like any country. You have people open to the culture, other cultures. People are more closed. They don't want other cultures. So it depends. It's like any other country.
Cool. And you're all mostly happy here?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, my respect. Yes.
Cool.
Yeah.
Wonderful. You too? You didn't say
Once I learned German,
He has-
more happy, happier.
Cool. All right.
Please, what are the computer science basics needed to be front-end developer and back-end developer?
I believe we answered this.
Yes.
Right?
I think so.
Yeah. Good. Now here comes a question about a specific role, cybersecurity and information security in Germany.
I can speak about it a bit. So I didn't find many opportunities for that. However, there's a growing need for people who work as in the information officer or something related to the privacy and cryptography and related to WASP practices, WASP top 10, or something related to the GDPR and data security and information security, and also related to the e-privacy that's coming next year. So there are different practices that companies are trying to do, and not many companies need people for this, but there are some specific companies that work in security practices in general, but mostly as consultants, not as in the development side. So that's what I've seen so far.
Cool, thank you. Next question, again, one on finding a job. How important is it to find referrals when applying to a job in Germany? So the broader question is, how important is networking? How important is it to know people if you want to find a job?
Yes, I can talk about Get Your Guide. We have a very strong referral program here because for us we don't hire based on referrals so much, and we want to change this number, right? So it's not easy to refer people because some of our networking, like in our country, they don't want to come to Germany most of the time. But I believe that most of the company, they have this referral program. So it's not mandatory. It's good to have, and usually makes your life easier in the beginning of the process. So you don't need to pass for the phone screen and things like that. You can dive directly to the technical interview.
Cool. But important point, it makes your life easier maybe in the beginning, but knowing somebody will typically never get you a job, right?
Yeah,
No,
of
no,
course.
it
Yeah.
will give you the job, but it just help you instead of sending the CV or resume on the website, you send it to the guy,
Yeah.
and he will send it to the same system.
Yeah.
So the system may get the same screening again, and also we get the same tests. Maybe
Yeah.
some companies have bypassing for those tests, but you will end up with interviews eventually, and you need to be prepared anyway.
I would add to what you're trying to say that having a referral is only one or adding 1 point in your credit for the company, but 1 point out of 100 points, it's less. The only thing, as Khalid mentions, that he can bypass you some like bureaucracies and like automated screening for the CV and stuff like this. He hand over the CV to the recruiter, but he does not involve in any hiring stages or steps or phases.
And also for the referral, some people think because we have this stereotype of my uncle who lives in Germany, he can bring me to work with him. So some people may get this perception from these cases, but I don't think it's applicable in the IT by all means because it's all about how are you gonna perform. Because if I brought somebody and he didn't perform, it's actually a loss for me. And it's fireback for the people who are recommended. So it's not actually applicable at all in the IT or the software.
Got it. Cool. All right, next question is more broad. Why would Germany even consider hiring a candidate from Egypt for an IT position?
I would ask you why not.
So I can say two things. One is just generally speaking, developers and software engineers are in super high demand. Germany as a country needs more of you guys. So there's simply a shortage of good people like you. So this is point number one. Point number two is you see that when you put out a job description. So basically I hear from recruiters when they have a job opening and they have 10 interested candidates, 2 might come from Germany, 4 might come from rest of Europe, and another 4 might come from outside of Europe. Okay, so there again, you really see that there are actually not that many Germans directly on the market. And then like you did the segmenting, you can do that again. So I have friends who are German developers, and sometimes they prefer working for SAP and Daimler and all of these big German brands that pay a little bit better maybe on average and maybe a little bit more comfortable. And so there are big growing startups like the companies that you're working at that are desperately searching good people.
Or the German people look for freelancing mostly. Sometimes they are comfortable with freelancing because it's their country and stuff. But I would answer or mention something in this question. Not because this is a meeting like targeting Egyptian market means that Germany specifically needs Egyptian, but it's not. I work in a team, we're a team of 6 and we don't have a duplicate nationality. So Germany accepts from all around the world, and Egyptian software engineers doesn't have anything more or less than any other engineer in the world.
I think in your company you have like 200 Egyptians or something.
We have 200 Egyptians in the company, but this doesn't mean that we are better than anyone or less than anyone. We are just equal.
I have one more thing to add. I think in my company, in Goyo, we don't have many Germans. We have like 350 people, maybe 50 Germans, and 300 from all over the world, from different countries.
And
from
your founder,
China to Brazil to everywhere.
And the founder, is he German?
No, he's Indian.
Exactly.
Yeah. And even the board itself is not even German. And the C-level, the VPs are not, we have some people from Britain, we have some people from China, we have people from Czech. So it's different countries. And we have even Egyptians in the different hierarchical levels in Zalando, in Goyo, and maybe in other countries, in other companies.
GetYourGuide is 12% Germans.
12%, wow.
And we have 60 nationalities, plus the 60.
Wow.
It's very diverse.
Impressive.
You have 2 Egyptians.
And to be honest, the last 6 months, the 3 hires I did, the 3 of them were Egyptians.
Cool.
Awesome.
This is
So
encouraging.
we are doubling the number of Egyptians soon in this area.
All right, next question. I'm a student, and what should I do to be able to go to Germany once I have graduated? Okay, so this is a guy who, from German recruiters' perspective, has 0 years of work experience after college. And I would like to understand one thing, because I see a pattern. I see a pattern of these people then working for good corporations in Egypt, like eSpace and others. And then after 2 or 3 years, I'm making a move. Are you seeing similar patterns, basically trying to get to good Egyptian-based companies and then moving?
Yes.
Can you recommend some of these companies?
In Egypt.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I know, but it's also hard to get into these companies in Egypt. Like for example, in the horizon right now, there is Instabug, there is IT Works. Guys, help me. IBM is national, so I'm just IBM, and I was working for HSBC, for example, but I don't recommend to work in corporates. If you are a software engineer, try to work on software house to get the most knowledge on software development. Or startup, for example. This is really nice. There is Eventus.
There are Eventus. There are. I mean, if you check Flat Six Labs, there are different.
Yeah, exactly.
There are Greek Campus and Flat Six Lab. There are tons of startups in Egypt. You can experiment some startups. You can work with them, and even there are some jobs. If you have some experience in freelancing, you can just work in freelancing beside your job. And if you want, you can come and study here in different universities in Berlin, and then get an internship if you want to. I think they don't even require German. There are different universities that require only English, and admission is not really hard. So even if you want to come and continue studies as a student, you can do this, and then you can get an internship and then get a job. So you can just have multiple options.
Cool.
You can work in Egypt, get some experience if you want to. If you want to come here and continue study, then you can come over, do your studies, and
Yeah, indeed, and in particular for continuing studies, yes. I can tell you what I keep on hearing from recruiters is that it's very hard to place people with 0, 1, or 2 years of work experience. So really you're ripe when you have 3 years or more of work experience, as a rule of thumb, but there are always exceptions, obviously.
I think I also read some article today that fresh graduates in Egypt prefer startups to work for in order to gain as much experience as possible in short amount of time. And the way to go for this to find the startups is to find like incubators or venture capitals that can have startups and they have the need to bring and train people in order to get the job done in the least amount of money that they have to pay. And in the beginning also, it's important to not put the money as a priority, especially in the beginning, because some people, they are fresh graduates and they want to work, but they target salaries like senior salaries just because I graduate from the computer science and I deserve this. So it doesn't go that way. You have to sacrifice in the beginning, but it's not it shouldn't like go underpaid, but just try to find the suitable money or the pay for the job. But just try to get as much experience in the startups because the startups has a workload, and with a workload, just try to not fight it, but try to take it into your advantage. By that I mean try to use that pressure, to like learn more and grow more and faster.
Cool, thank you. All right, we'll go back to data science.
No.
Did you read the question?
This is the second one.
Yeah, I read the question. Yeah, the second.
Yeah, it's the second one.
Okay, yeah, so I got so in a nutshell, so let's talk about the first part about the skills. So
Can you repeat that question? I think not all people.
No problem. So for this science job, what are the most focused skills, tools to get hired by a German asset? Oh, it's giving up. Is studying the master degree in working for a multinational company helping. So the first part is about the skills and the knowledge regarding the programming skills. So it's Python, R, SQL, Apache Spark for the programming and data engineering part. Regarding the machine learning part, I think good knowledge of different classification techniques, support virtual machines, decision trees, statistical analysis like hypothesis testing, A/B testing. Just, I mean, the broad knowledge, not the deep mathematical knowledge, is it's really needed. And working for, it doesn't matter for a multinational company or a smaller company, as long as you get experience in the area. Having a master degree, as I said, it might be a plus, but it is not a must because I've been working with very, very smart people without a master degree. So, yeah, I hope that answers your question.
Cool, thank you.
Welcome.
All right, so we have a question on game development, but we decided let's make this a question for the next Ask Me Anything session and jump over this.
You can have a game developer actually.
Yeah,
with us.
exactly.
I know one, but
yeah. Cool. Quality control engineering, QA, automation testing. These specific roles.
I can say something in this. So first, quality engineering, there are two parts, manual and automation. Manual doesn't have any market here. It will be very, very minor in very small companies, but everyone is going for automation. So automation using different things. You can use BBD, Cucumber scenarios. You can use some drives like Selenium WebDrive. There are some others that use Java and others who use API testing, end-to-end testing, testing scenarios. We have really, really good people we have maybe in the next Ask Me Anything, we have one of the key persons in the community, the Egyptian community is one of the really good testers, so he can give you some more insights and details on this. But automation, there is no manual, so that's the main thing.
In a nutshell, his name is Mu'taz Nabil. Guys, he has a Udemy course. You can just follow him in LinkedIn and stuff like this. He's a key figure in this manner, especially in Egypt. And maybe in the next meetup, we can bring him here and ask him specific testing and automation question. He works for Zalando, by the way.
Yeah.
Cool. Can an expat build a startup in Germany or own a business? Is that anything that you guys are familiar with, or?
I have seen people building startups in here.
Yeah.
I think that we also have in the community one who is actually a CEO of one of the companies, and we have another one who had also funding in Rocket Internet and trying to build up his own startup. But there are procedures that how to create a startup, and we know some people maybe we just write it down and then get one of those C level who managed to go through the paperwork and everything and created a startup.
Yeah.
But Mike, the question is for you actually. Does it matter? Is it different to start a startup if you're German or not? I don't think so.
So it is a question of which visa can you use to actually even come into Germany for this purpose. So long story short, it's a different visa than the visa you guys are having, and you basically have to prove the validity of your entrepreneurship project. And that essentially means you have to write a business plan, 20 or 30 pages, ideally in German, that is read by German bureaucrats, and so on and so on. And it's a very unpredictable process. I have a friend from Brazil who went through it, and basically did not make it, and in order to stay, he had to immediately find a job. So, long story short, it's very difficult. Instead, I would advise people to first come over, work in a company like yours, and then through that develop connections, and then move it into a entrepreneurial activity.
So this, we can jump into the next question. Can you come with a specific visa, and then if you prove that you are good to start your own job, you can transfer or change your visa easily?
That is possible. I have to admit, I don't know all the details around that. It's certainly tedious. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
How did
All right.
you find an apartment?
All right. You talked about apartments, right?
Yeah.
Okay. And go ahead. But
So-
basically, the journey is first people tend to have a temporary apartment and then a permanent one, right? Was that the same for you?
Depending on the company, some companies help you. Some companies give you a temporary apartment for a month that you pay a small fee. Some other give you a company that help you in finding a good apartment, a temporary one if you want to for like few months, and then you can start your apartment search. The apartment search is not really creative. It's just some steps, some websites that you need to look for those websites and prepare a bunch of documents, pay slips, contract, visa type, and those kind of stuff. And the Shufa, which is your credit score.
We have a document for that which we can share with
Yeah,
everybody.
exactly. And you can get this online and everything.
Yeah.
So everything you can do this online, and the apartment viewing, you need to do this, but also some apartments you need to have a German colleague with you. Some companies help you with that, some others don't. But I mean, eventually you get an apartment. There's nobody, I mean, there are housings, there are apartments, but it just takes some time.
Cool. Thank you. Next question. I'm married and I have a family. Is it a must for both husband and wife to work to sustain a decent life in Germany? Frankly, I believe the answer is no, and we already talked about the salaries. In particular, in Berlin, life is relatively cheap, and your salary, even after taxes, is high enough to sustain you as a family of 4 or even 5.
I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah, I also want to add, if your wife also works, if the salary is not so high, you're going to pay more taxes also because of that. So usually, like if the wife has a salary that's somehow lower than yours, usually it's just adding 25% only on your income, net income.
Yeah. Which is a reflection of the fact that basically, if you're the only one who's working, you effectively have a tax advantage, right? Which is something that you've alluded to.
And among all the Egyptians that I saw, most of the Egyptian, their wife doesn't work here because the salary is okay for the father, and I would say it's not required.
And actually, this begs a question: what do the wives do? Are there ways for them to meet each other and hang out together, or
they have fun more than us? I know that they are not going to watch this. So this is why I'm saying.
Okay. True. My wife will certainly not watch this.
I mean, some wives work, some others don't, and there are different activities for the wives and also for different children in different things. There is a Facebook lab called Future Legends that's for younger generation female that actually get practices on problem solving and other exercises. And also for the wives, if they want to, there are different initiatives here for like Ready and others that can help people learn different skills. And even if the wife want to work, they don't know anything, or they graduated from a different degree, they want to learn something different, they can do this. In the community in here, there are different practices. There are also, if you're coming with a blue card, you can go into integration course and you can learn some German first. and then this open a bunch of actually
Cool.
lots of possibilities
Yeah.
for them to work and learn and engage with the community and integrate.
Cool. And I mean, you also said that the expat community is very rich here.
Yes.
I know from lots of Brazilian friends that there are WhatsApp groups and lots of ways of basically getting into the specific communities.
Exactly.
Right. Cool. All right. I suggest let's skip this question because that's about trendy technologies.
Yeah,
I
I
believe
think
we
we-
started with that.
Can I say one thing about this? Maybe, guys, if you like to dig deeper into one specific aspect of the development, you can just let us know,
Mhm.
and then we can prepare for this, like for a session for a back end,
Mhm.
session for front end, session for testing and stuff like this. Just let us know what do you want to hear more or to ask more about, and we will be responsive.
We can have Ask Me Anything for backend, for
Yeah.
mobile,
Yes.
and then we can prepare everything.
Cool. Front-end or mobile question?
How many
You want to
years
read
of, yeah, how many years of experience should a mobile developer Android to move to Germany, and what's the desirable skills should they have? Well, how many years of experience? It's really depend on how much experience. So I see young developers. I mean, by young I mean
Age.
2 years experience in Android field, but some of them have pre-experience in Java, and some of them have worked with backend before. But just 2 years experience is enough. But make sure it's the developer has worked with the relevant technologies and the relevant business cases, because if you work for 2 years in service company that only serve some content and without any logic, without any business growth, it doesn't actually count as experience. It just count as, let's say, few months and repeat it. So make sure your current job is relevant to that, and it's actually adding more experience to your career. And for the desirable skills, make sure you use Kotlin. You are familiar with functional programming. So make sure to use RX Java, for example, and reactive overall concept. Make sure you know design patterns, clean architecture, best practice in the for example, solid principles. Make sure to read Clean Coder, a book, Clean Code and Clean Coder. It's both very recommended book as a base for the development. And yeah, I mean, also watch some talks for the Android, such as a fragmented podcast, and make sure to also follow the newsletter. It's called Android Weekly.
Yeah.
It's weekly newsletter. It's really good.
Cool. All right, thank you. And actually, let's keep the time a little bit in check. So I suggest we answer the 2 remaining questions that have 2 upvotes, and then all the others we hope to catch in one of the next Ask Me Anythings. And if there's any other question, guys, that we didn't answer and we should have, then please send either one of us an email, and we make sure to also address it. Cool. So let's do the second or the last question first, and that is a specific one on front-end engineering. Do you want to read out the question on Angular and other frameworks?
Yes, okay, where is the question? Okay, I have the basics of front-end engineer, and I was doing Angular 1, and now I'm choosing between newer technologies. How can I decide? I believe this question was in Arabic, and we translated it for the audience. So basically, we can go back to my previous answer to this. It really doesn't matter which framework you're using, right? But eventually you're going to choose one of them. If you feel that you are 100, really 100 in JavaScript, and you really want to look into a specific framework and continue in this framework, just pick whatever you're comfortable with. But I would recommend first to go further in the JavaScript APIs, go to Mozilla, for example, and read the web APIs. like go with some front-end challenges and then choose. If you want to choose, I would say between React and Angular, and then I was in this decision. It depends, right? So it depends what is the problem that you're trying to solve and what is your level of dealing with the bootstrapping an application. React applications is harder to bootstrap than Angular. This is what I've heard from people because of Webpack and bundling and stuff like this, that Angular comes with a predefined command line that you can bootstrap your application. React is also. I personally would vote for React right now. It's very, very opinionated. This doesn't mean that Angular don't go with Angular, but in general, please don't focus on a specific platform. Focus on what is behind these platforms. How this at the end these platforms is JavaScript or this framework. Sorry, not platforms. At the end they are JavaScript. Please work harder in the JavaScript side. I believe you also can add to this.
Yes,
Fasten?
although not front-end, but I'm part of some front-end decisions we have here in the company. And it's funny because back to 2 weeks ago, we are like defining the architecture of our Web Traveler front-end, which is a new project that we're starting. And there was this fight between Vue and React. And they came to me to ask my opinion about it. And my answer was exactly your answer. Why are you like focusing like in the framework itself? What is behind that? What is the best practice and how you're going to bring this data to the front end? And this part is, I told them, doesn't matter which choice you can do good things in both of them. So like focus on like exactly the design patterns. We decided for Vue, although I would say most of the engineers, they want React. It was not a consensus. It was like more a decision that was done in the past somehow. And now we have more engineers in the company and somehow like Vue was already in progress, let's say. For React, you need to build another proof of concept and other things. We decided for Vue because of that. But the focus is not the framework.
Yeah, exactly. For example, just understand what is the virtual DOM. Try to understand what is the virtual DOM and why some libraries sells the virtual DOM in their core, and how can you, as a developer, use a virtual DOM in a very simple implementation to understand what's going on. Something like this is helpful to decide which framework. Please don't limit yourself to certain framework because maybe a job requires Angular and you're good in React, right? It's a plus, but I don't recommend to focus on one platform or a specific platform.
Learn both.
Learn both. Learn JavaScript and you will learn any other framework.
Cool. Then another question, how hard is it to find tech jobs in Germany for the experience? So people with 10 or 12 years of work experience in a market like Egypt.
I came here with 10 years experience.
Okay, interesting.
So
after college, 10 years, yeah?
Yes,
including...
yes, about 9.
Okay.
9.
Mm-hmm.
So and it's not hard at all to get a job in here, but depending on the level. So if you are completely hands-on, completely technical, then you'll land here in a technical job. If you have been a manager for some time, then you need to form your resume and everything as a manager. You don't need to come here as a technical. You can come here as a manager. You can come here as, I know some people who were managers in respectful companies in Egypt, and they came here as managers, and now they are VP of engineering in different companies. So it depends. If you have all those years of experience in a technical aspect, form your resume in a proper way, prepare your portfolio and your GitHub repository and your contributions, and then you can just apply for jobs, and they will be more than happy to interview you and bring you here.
Cool.
Can I add something to this? I also came with almost 11 years of experience. It has the pros and cons, right? To have a lot of years of experience. If you're not super confident about your years of experience, please try to customize your CV or prepare your CV well. Don't go for senior or for lead position if you see that you failed in a lot of lead and senior positions interviews. Try to level down yourself a little bit, and once you come here, you will understand why you were rejected as a senior or why you were rejected as a lead, because there are some different perspective of lead and senior positions from Germany and Egypt. Yeah, different expectations. If you're 11 years old, they are expecting so much more from what you think. Not only technical skills, but maybe also soft skills and stakeholder management and stuff like this. And if you're not capable to do it, your years of experience will be useless.
Yes.
For the company. Sorry, I don't mean.
I can also give my example. I was like in a management position in Brazil. I had 15 years experience there, like back to 3 years ago. And I was not comfortable to come as a manager here because of language barriers. My English was not that good. I just read and never practice my English. So also different culture point of views. How can I manage different people? So I decided to come as a software engineer back 3 years ago. And after 2 years, I came back to the management track after I felt more comfortable.
Cool.
So it's, you just need to be open-minded and recognize your weak points and like work on them.
Yeah.
Thank you. All right, and the last question I think we'll just answer as an overview comment. So how can I make sure that my skills and qualifications are fit for the German tech market? I mean, this is the question we're addressing with this Ask Me Anything session. We will hopefully address that through further Ask Me Anything sessions in the future. So I believe you should do 3 things. One is keep on following these guys here, the Egyptian techies in Berlin. I think you guys are doing an amazing job at helping your countrymen and many others, Brazilians, etc., the world, to understand what the German tech market is all about. And you're really making a big impact in people's lives. The second thing you can do is go to joinimagine.com. We're complementing what these guys are doing here, and we are giving people a 360-degree assessment. So basically helping people see if their communication skills are good enough. We give a very rough approximation of the technical skills. And then we also help people improve their CV and their LinkedIn and their online presence in general. So this is something that we're doing. And thirdly, well, I think you guys have also said it, just do it. Apply, go through first technical interviews. You will learn a lot. Listen, think about what you learned and improve. And I think there are many good examples where very smart people even took 12 months of trying, but they made it in the end.
Yeah.
Right?
All of us failed.
Yeah.
In interviews, like we failed. We failed in a lot of interviews, but we made it at one interview.
Yeah.
Yeah. So don't judge yourself based on 1 or 2 interviews. Just keep doing it.
Yeah. Good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
And see you soon.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you all.
Yeah.